Sweet. Brett, my friend, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm just starting this slow roll of a morning. And I actually decided that maybe instead of gymnastics, we should just talk about woodworking and coffee for a couple hours.
I think that would be a blast.
Yeah.
Two passions of mine and yours as well. I know, right? Now I got you hooked on the woodworking.
I'm intrigued. I mean, after that otter piece that I sent you, I was like, that is mind blowing. Like whatever. I mean, that's probably like what the pinnacle of the pinnacle in terms of what I think is impressive. But yeah, I'm intrigued.
There's so many talented people out there doing that, and for me, I just caught on to it over the pandemic as a lot of people picked up new hobbies. But we spend so much time in the gymnastics world that it's great to take your mind off it and do something that's just completely different for a while. So
Yeah.
yeah, you and I have talked about that in the past, but I don't know if your fans of this podcast are that interested.
That's okay. We'll
We
just
won't,
refer them to some other podcasts.
yeah, we won't bore them to death with that, but
Yeah. The last point is that after I saw Tim, our mutual friend Tim, build his entire living room from scratch, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Tim's ridiculous. But yeah, that's why I was so intrigued. I'm like, dude, you literally built your entire like living set. This is amazing.
yeah, and the funny people I say they get into woodworking or building stuff to either save money or to make money, and neither are true. Absolutely not true. So that's the only
$10,000 on a saw later. You're like, this is not what I thought my tax return would look like.
for sure. And that's how I started. Was that it was my wife and I were looking at outdoor furniture. And I don't know if you've ever bought outdoor. It's crazy expensive.
Yeah.
And I could build this for cheaper. Well, that's just not the case. So
There's no way to wiggle that into UMD's credit card expenses like the woodworking kits. No.
I don't think they would. Maybe if I build some stuff for the gym, but not for my house.
Oh man, I can't imagine that going on. Anywho, yes, we're here to talk about gymnastics. So we are the setting of this little like podcast series is I'm fortunate to know a lot of people in NCAA and in this preseason, which is recorded now. I just want to talk to a bunch of people and essentially just pick their brains and share some excitement for the season rolling up, and want to show UMD and the Ivy League some love too. So we're trying to get not only the big name schools, but you're a prime candidate, man, because I think you guys are absolutely crushing it down there.
Yeah, we're on a good roll right now, and coming off of last season, one of the best seasons in program history. We finished 9-1 at home. We had a top 10 victory over number 6. We finished regular season ranked 20th in the nation. So we're kind of an up and coming program, and we're embracing that kind of mentality of like just moving up every single year in the rankings. So we're having a blast, and I can't wait to see what we do this year, because this team is really special too.
Yeah, and I want to start there too, because my understanding of either being a gymnast or working with a lot of programs now is people see like this one killer season. They're like, God damn, like what happened? They like popped up. But all of a sudden you're like, actually, it's been like years and years and years of grinding behind the scenes, when I firmly believe that for every hour of polished work you see, back to woodworking, no pun intended, is that for every hour of polished work you see at a meet, there are hundreds and hundreds of hours that nobody sees by yourself with you and your team. And so what do you think are some of the last 5 or 10 years of steps that have progressed you up to like having such a great season?
It's that slow, steady process, and no turtle puns, please. But it's that 1% better. And we've myself and my staff, we've kind of, since we've gotten together, over a decade ago, it's how can we get 1% better in every single area of the program? So like our training needs to get 1% better every day. Our recruiting process, our the weight room, the recovery in the training room, the way we use sports psych, the way we use nutrition, the marketing, the media. Just taking those incremental steps week in and week out, and it's a long process. But if you're patient, I remember as an assistant coach when I was here, and we weren't qualifying for regionals, and it was like really hard and challenging. And now we're at a point where the last couple of years we've actually secured that first round bye. And we're trying to push into the Sweet 16. So it can happen. It's just a lot of work, and you have to be patient with yourself, with your staff, and with your student athletes.
Yeah. And with that too, I mean, I feel like you just mentioned like about 11 categories of things that are your things you're working on, right? So like you're talking about marketing, you're talking about the weight room, you're talking about like nutrition and stuff. Is that like, do you just try to surround yourself with people who are good at those things? Are you trying to learn more yourself? Are you delegating? Because I feel like a lot of teams are like, yes, we want that. Like we want that too. So what do you do in that process? Is that like, okay, JJ, you take this, shout out JJ, or Aaron, you take this, I'll take this. We'll talk to any of us know this. We'll talk to this person for this. How do you build that structure around you?
Yeah. So, when you start out as a young head coach, you just believe in yourself that you can do all those things on your own. And I'm gonna I'm gonna jump down there and make our strength and conditioning better, and I'm gonna make our um, training room stuff better. And
Yeah.
you're still going through your strength staff and your training staff, but and you do, you make a small improvement there. But then as you become older and hopefully wiser, what I've learned is, you will never be as much of an expert as the people that are living that on a daily basis, right?
Mm.
So, like, for example, like I went to business school, but I'll still have somebody manage my finances, right? Because
Right.
they are doing that every single day. They're in the
Right.
stock market. That's what they're trained to do every day. And yeah, I have a basis in that and a background in that, but you're never going to be more proficient than the experts who have dedicated their lives to those fields. So my advice there is, you've got to find the right people. You've got to entrust them to implement their programs, and then, but you also have to encourage them to grow. And
Mm.
I think this is one of the things that you had in the questions that you wanted to talk about was um, learning and growing every year. And
Yeah.
if they're learning and growing in their field, if they're learning the newest, latest strength conditioning exercises, the newest treatment methods, then they're going to make your program better.
Right.
So my job is to support their growth, to encourage them to grow, and to not, have to create an atmosphere where it's okay to try things, right? Like,
Mm.
we're going to try some new exercises in the weight room, and it might make them sore, or it might not work, but we have to be flexible in giving them the latitude to make these improvements, because you never know, some of these things could pay off in enormous ways.
Mm. Yeah, that's very well said. I think that it's interesting to watch somebody who can really do that at a high level, which is find the right people, connect with those people, but also be willing to hear their advice and actually trust what they have as expertise. And I believe what you say fully, which is people, I think, unfortunately, in gymnastics don't realize that everything that a club coach for sure, but a college coach is asked to do is a full-time career, right? Like strength and conditioning, nutrition, mental health, whatever you want to say, like those are literally full-time careers. And I think a lot of the times I like talking with coaches at the college levels because a lot of what they can gain reflects down on the club level, which then obviously has a positive net feeder back up to college, right? But so many club coaches really believe that they can do it all. They think they can write strength programs. They think they can be the technical master. They think they can also work on mental blocks. They can also deal with nutrition and stuff. And it's like, man, that's a stressful way to live your life. But also you're just asking for something to fall through the cracks, right? You're going to miss something because you don't have that. And so do you vet out people and find people for that? Is it like you're lucky at the university you have that? Or is it something that you just try to connect with them and be like, you're probably a good fit. We want to try to be connected with you.
Yeah, and to touch on what you said, I mean, sometimes for club coaches, in their defense, they don't have a choice, right?
Right.
Like, and I go back to 5 years ago. Right now we're fortunate at the University of Maryland that we will have 5 full-time sports psychologists.
Mm,
But if you go back 5 years ago, we had zero.
mm,
Most schools had zero. So this is a growing field. So the point is, at the time, the coach was the best thing we had, right?
yeah.
Like, trying to wear that sports psychology hat, which none of us really should do, right? That's not what we're trained in. At least I wasn't. Like I said, I went to business school, so but it was better than nothing at the time, right? And
Right.
that's, I think, what club coaches, they don't have a dedicated strength coach, they don't have a dedicated PT, they don't have a dedicated sports psychologist. And like you said, we're fortunate to be at the University of Maryland, a member of the Big Ten Conference. You see all the changes that are going on in college athletics, and let's be honest, a lot of it has to do with money. We
Mm,
just signed uh, the biggest TV deal in sports history. The
mm,
$7 billion deal with the Big Ten Network and ABC and all these, all this TV money that allows us to
mm,
provide for our student athletes a higher quality of care.
mm.
And that's the difference going from club to college. Club, there's great coaches in club. There's actually probably great strength coaches in club too. But what we can do is we can take your gymnastics to the next level with all the surrounding support. And that would
Mm.
be going to physical therapy and training every day, training room every day, nutrition education, sports psychology, academic support. You don't,
Yeah.
you people forget how much that factors into their productivity in the gym. If they feel like their school's going well, they can focus a little more in the gym. But
Yeah.
that holistic approach that we take, I don't take it for granted, because when I started as a young coach, we certainly didn't have some of those things.
Yeah, and maybe there's a twofold piece of advice there, which is one, when you don't have those resources, is maybe do be willing to do some extra work behind the scenes and learn a little bit here, and just know enough to be dangerous to kind of be aware of it. But at the club level too, I mean, for sure now there's like so much more podcasts, internet, blogs, reach out to people. Like that's something we've tried to do a lot at Shift, is make that material accessible for people. And I feel like if you have the will and you really want to put some grind work in, you might find one of those 8 areas, strength conditioning. You're like, I actually like this, and maybe I'd like to go get a strength conditioning degree. But then everything else, you're like, that's not interesting for me. But maybe you can find some people to do virtual consulting with your team once per month, and the parent club can pay $10 to have everybody get a mental skills training. Like that's totally doable. I think it's more of either the humility to say somebody can help, or then the actual tactical having the will to figure it out,
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's always a way, right?
Yeah.
There's a way to get to where you want to go. If you want to improve your strength and conditioning and you don't have access to a strength coach, just like you said, listen to some of these podcasts. You do have to be selective, because everybody doesn't, all the information you read on the internet is not
Sure.
tried and true, but do your research and find people who are reputable. And I think what you're doing for the gymnastics community is incredible, because you've been a resource, and you've brought in other experts as well that we can all listen and learn from. So I think you're doing a ton for the gymnastics community, and hopefully doing stuff like this, the podcast, that gets the word out to more club coaches, more college coaches, no matter what sport you coach. These are all skills that we can apply to our student athletes.
Well, I think selfishly, it's just because I'm a massive dork and I want to keep learning from people. And so I can cheat by talking to really smart people on a podcast instead of having to pay for courses, but that's beyond of it. Yeah, something I do want to go back to, which I think is crucial that we kind of double click on here, is the ability to create an environment where it's not everything is perfect all the time and we're always going to do this. Like I feel like that is overwhelmingly the tone that's still in the club, the elite, and the college level in gymnastics, which is there actually is a lot of really new information coming out: strength conditioning, nutrition, mental health, even skill technique changes quite a bit. But everyone is looking down into this like unknown path forward of, okay, what if I change this? I'm going to miss this out, or we're going to miss this shot. Right. And like, that's what I feel is still a big tone with strength conditioning and with a lot of other things, is like, okay, I think I want to try this, but like if I change this and I miss out on my traditional gymnastic strength training, what happens down the road? I'm going to miss out on all these things. And people have a big fear of the unknown. And so I'd like to maybe hear your perspective on why you actually felt that might have been helpful year over year, just to change things and try things, because, it seems like that was monumental for your guys' growth year to year.
Yeah. So that's so important for especially a program like ours. We're trying to grow, right? So, you're trying to take a program that was ranked in wherever we were, when I was an assistant in the 40s, and now we're trying to move up to the top 20 last year. And here was my thing, is that all those ways that have worked for people in the past, like they've already mastered those. Like I'm not going to get better at those methods than they are, because I'm up against coaches. When I started my career, Greg Marsden and Suzanne Yocklin and Dee Dee Bro and Sarah down in Alabama, and Miss Val, like you're not going to outdo their method, right? So you need to come up with your own. And in doing so, you've got to try some things that they don't do, right? You have to differentiate yourself. So we were always into exploring more efficient ways to train, ways that can make us better, but limiting injuries, that make us stronger, but reduce the chance of getting hurt. I mean, that's everybody's game, right? But we've got to do it differently, right? You have to kind of master your own plan. And that's why I feel like we do it differently probably than anyone else in the country. I'm sure there's similarities here and there, but I just knew early on that if we were going to find some success, it couldn't just be a carbon copy of what other people were doing, because you will never do it better than the original.
Right, for sure. And I think to that point, there's something to be said for the act of role modeling and how you all as a leader, I was fortunate to spend time with you guys, but you and Aaron and JJ are equally open to, okay, I got to learn this or try this or take this perspective, which is new. And I think that people underappreciate as a coach or a parent or a medical provider working in gymnastics is more so what you're doing and your example then reflects on the athletes and their willingness to try things and make mistakes and not feel as though it has to be perfect. Like, so many young gymnasts, particularly in going into a college program, become paralyzed because they feel as though I have to hit a series every single time, no matter what. There's never any mistakes. I need to be perfect. And it's so destructive to their ability to perform well. And I think watching you all operate is like, okay, well, when you show the ability to learn and try to break out with new ideas, but also have expectations of yourself, that trickles down to a very positive culture and environment. I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on that, if you agree with that or if you feel as though that's something that is just built in you.
No, 100% correct. So from the staff standpoint, like you mentioned, Aaron, JJ, and I, and then all our support staff as well, I make it clear right from the very start, if we have the best season in program history, we're going to come in the next year and still see where we can make changes and improvements. We're never going to sit still, because my thinking is if you're not growing and learning, it's not even that you're standing still. Other people are growing and learning, so they're passing you. Right. So it's like, if you want to stand still, you're standing on a set of train tracks and you're going to get run over. So we have to constantly improve. I mean, if we win a Big Ten championship this year, we will still come in and make changes and improvements. And we'll do a feedback loop where we look at the things from the previous year, the things that worked, we'll try to keep them or improve them. Things that didn't work, let's switch them and do something different. And then to touch, like you said, with the team, that is so crucial. That like you said, they have the freedom to make mistakes and to feel like they're not, they'll be supported no matter what. And when that comes into play is, you're going to ask these kids to get up on a 4-inch beam in front of thousands of fans. And you don't want them thinking about how they could make a mistake or let you down or let their teammates down. So they have to feel before they step out on that beam or mount bars that, hey, I'm supported, I'm loved no matter what happens in this routine. And then what happens is you're free.
Yeah.
You're free to go for the handstand. You're free to try to stick that dismount without any fear. And that's so crucial to our team culture. We work at that every single day.
Yeah. Versus what the opposite, which is what we see a lot happens, is someone has already the pressure of 1,000 fans, 10,000 fans watching and the heat of the moment. And then they also have in the back of their mind, oh no, what if what is my coach, are they going to do this? If I do this, what are my teammates going to think? And what's the gossip going to be like? Like I've seen that single-handedly erode successful cultures because it starts to become, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? And you don't really know if people have your back. And then you have a double-edged sword of the actual skill competition. And then the pressure of the outside social construct. And that's brutal on people,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and I'll give you an example. We tell them, right, we got to second round NCAAs, and I said, listen, no fear today. We're going to go for all of it. Like, if you make a mistake today, make it because you're going for a handstand. And we had in the first rotation, one of our gymnasts cast it over in a handstand. And when she got down, I said, great job. Like, you're not going to advance to the Sweet 16 going short on every handstand. It's not going to happen. So let's go for it. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. And it was fine. The rest of the team was on board. But since we'd talked about that all year long, it wasn't anything new to them. It wasn't a change. We made the commitment that we were going to support, love, and encourage one another, whether it was the best meet of the season or if we struggled. So that, like I said, it really frees them up to attack, I think, to be on the offense when you're competing rather than on the defense. Like, I don't think gymnastics looks good in a defensive mindset when you're trying not to make mistakes, you're trying not to fall, you're trying not to cast over. That's not what judges want to see. They want to see you going for it. And that's where your scores go from those 9.75s to 9.85s and 9.9s.
Yeah. And I think there's a really important takeaway here for listeners, which is there's a difference. And at this point, I've been really fortunate to look across a lot of programs here in the States and elsewhere. And of course, I'm not going to name names, but there's a fundamental difference between those who have principles and systems that are baked into their culture that are we always look back on the last season, what went well, what didn't go well, what can we fix? That mindset of introspection. And then this kind of culture of, pushing the envelope forward with being okay, supporting people that as a foundation is so different than a reactive type. Oh no, this didn't go well. We're going to punish you with conditioning. We're going to get after it and make you do 10 routines on Monday because you didn't stick. Fear is a good motivator for a very short period of time, right? But there's a very big difference between principles and systems and values and quick tricks. You know what I mean?
Yep. And, you hit the nail on the head. Fear is certainly a motivator, but it's short term. And, I made the commitment very early on in my coaching career. And, when you go back, that was kind of a standard method in
Yeah.
our sport.
Yeah.
And I just felt like there's got to be a different way to do this. And if I'm wrong, I told myself early on, I'll do this for 4 years. And if I'm wrong, and that's the way you have to be successful, then I'm gonna go do something else. And I did grad school and all that just to set myself up in case. But if that's the way, if it has to be that I gotta be this scary type of coach in order to get the most out of my student athletes, then I just don't want to do it, and I'll go do something else. But I really truly believe, and I'm not the only one. There's other coaches proving it too, especially
Sure.
in the collegiate world, that you can be positive and supportive and encouraging and loving and caring for your student athletes and find success. And to be honest, you get more out of them.
Yeah.
I always say this. So we learned in business school that employees who are afraid of losing their job or being reprimanded or punished will do enough to keep their job, but they will never do more.
Right.
Employees that feel like they're a part of the organization, they're part of the team, they're part of the university, they feel supported, loved, encouraged, they'll go above and beyond. And I'm fortunate to say that the team that I have now and it started last year these kids that they will go above and beyond for me and for my staff and for the university. And it's so rewarding. I mean, I love going to practice every day because, gosh, this group, they get after it, and
Yeah.
it's never me asking them to work hard. They're in there just like knocking down walls and trying to stick everything that comes their way. And then we give them some, JJ will give them some crazy floor endurance for conditioning, and they'll just smash it out of the park. And it's like, this is just really fun, and it all goes back to that culture that we've built on love and support instead of fear and intimidation.
Yeah, exactly. And to that, right, that's the value of social contagion. It can be a very great, amazing moonshotting thing, or it can be something that erodes you from the inside out, which is if you do build things around, hey, we're a bunch of people who have sound moral compasses. We believe in the same common goal of winning Big Tens or making it wherever. Everybody kind of collectively unites behind those things. And I can tell you, man, when shit hits the fan and you don't want to do those extra 5 exercises and you don't want to stay 5 more minutes in the weight room and you don't really want to do all that stuff that you have to do for them, like that is where a lot of that glue comes together when like, all right, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to push through a little bit more and do it. But it works the other way too, which is all those little side comments and all those little gossip things and all those little moments where you're bickering between each other behind each other back, that pulls you down at a negative social contagion. And so it really is a reflection of the values you hold, the compass you want to go on, and what you believe in is like you as a human are separate from you as a coach or you as a gymnast. Like we're just here doing this together as a common goal. Like we all happen to love it, but it doesn't mean that we're better or worse people if things don't go well,
Yeah, and you have to work at it, right? Like our culture is in such a great place right now, and but we work at it. We joke it's the 5th event, right? So you got vault, bars, beam floor, and team culture. And I learned early in my career, it's funny. I go back the first 4 years as a head coach, the team got along just so great, and I just thought, oh, this is just how it works. Like we didn't put any effort into our team building, anything into they just all clicked together, and I was really fortunate to have a group of kids that but loved one another and that also bought into what myself, Aaron, and JJ we were trying to do with the program. And it was so fun. But what I realized quickly is as those kids graduated, we hadn't prepared anyone else to be leaders, right? To lead our culture because it was just there. And then so we went through a time frame when we were trying to find our identity as a program. And now we've come full circle that we have things structured in that focus on team culture. We have team retreat. We have weekly team building activities. We have what we call family Sunday dinners where the team, one apartment cooks for the whole team and then it rotates. We have these things that are built in to our daily, weekly regimen that focus on team culture. And it's changed everything. It's that positive team culture will in a great way leak into everything that you do. And
Correct.
it affects how they approach training room. It affects how they approach the weight room. It affects how they approach their sleep and their hydration, their nutrition. And then obviously it affects the gym. And then like we talked about, it affects the way they compete because they feel supported and they feel free to really attack it when we get to competitions.
Yeah, and back to just summarizing this point up, which is so important, which is the thought process. And again, I grew up when I was coaching too. Like obviously, I'm a little younger than you, but like my traditional coaching was like, you do what has to be done. You have an assignment, they do it. Nobody speaks up. You follow, and then it works its way up the ladder where now you're kind of like at the hierarchy of whatever this national team person or whatever says, and it just goes right. And the thought process is that the only way to make performance edge farther along is to really like squeeze the juice out of the lemon there and get it more. But it's the opposite. The harder you squeeze and the harder you pressure and the harder you put it, eventually somebody just has a breaking point and they're like, I'm all good with this. Because like you said, who performs at their best when they're getting yelled at and like degraded, right? Nobody is like sitting there getting a better performance. On the opposite, if you truly do encourage a place where people are genuinely supported and genuinely loved, it's a massive turbo boost to their performance because they want to go the extra mile by themselves. They want to go above and beyond because they care, not because like they're in fear of getting punished. It's the exact same parallel, like you said, with business. It's massive.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I tell the team at the beginning of the year, I said, I want you to do two things this year and I'll always be proud of you. I want you to work hard. I want you to love each other. Like if you do those two things, almost everything will take care of itself. And then I also challenge them during the tough moments. So we opened the season last year. We won the meet, but we just really weren't happy with our performance, and we knew that we were better. And I asked them. I said, this is the moment where I want you to be a family, right? Like we say family all the time, and that's easy when you're beating the number 6 team in the country, when everything's going right. I want to see you be a family when we're not happy with how we did and support
Right.
each other. And you saw how quickly we turned it around. We had one bad meet to open the season, and then we were like a rocket ship the rest of the year. We had 3 197s in a row right at the end of the season. I mean, we were cooking, but I believe it's because in that moment we had to make a choice, right? We had a bad meet that we didn't like. What do we do? Do we blame each other, or do we support each other? And that's what that team chose to do. Is no, we locked in even harder. We doubled down on our culture right in that moment, and then from then on, it was like everything was easy after that.
Yeah, and to that, you said something that's super important, which is when you won the meet, but you didn't have a performance that you were necessarily happy with. And I think that's another key element in programs that I see making monumental gains is they're aware of their outside surroundings, obviously, but they're so much more internally focused on like, is this our best performance? Is this what we're capable of? Is this what we can do? Not like how many Ds are over there? What's that distance? What's that bar score over there of all these teams and like spreadsheets and trying to track who's what? Like, I feel like that's another really dark hole that some teams get into sometimes, which is always on social media, always on other teams. What are they doing? What do we need to do? And I feel like, man, that's a lot of wasted energy. You know what I mean?
A ton of wasted. You hit the nail on the head again. Like you're wasting energy worrying about other people. Like this competition is between us, and can we beat us from last week? I mean that's the challenge right there. And from a coaching standpoint, like we don't watch game film. We're not watching our opponents. We're not going to change what we do based on what our opponent's doing. What we are going to do is we're going to watch our own film and try to find, I always say, okay, if we scored a 49-0 on bars, we had 1 point in deduction. So we're going to look to try to cut that in half by week 2. Right. So that's the goal. You try to find 5 more tenths that we can earn. And maybe next week you go 49-2. Okay. So there were 8 mistakes in that lineup, right? Let's try to find 4 of them and let's correct those. Okay, next week you go 49-3, right? You just keep working at it, but there's never a point where we focus on what our opponent's doing. There's no time where that's beneficial to us. For us, it's us against us. And like you said, we won that meet, and I was proud that they were like, oh no, that's not the standard, for us. And we have a saying, and we weren't the first, and I know Mike Tomlin from the Steelers, but the standard is the standard, and we really believe in that. And it's hard. You win a meet, and the bus ride home, we were mad, because we just didn't do what we knew we were capable of. We'd done so many inter squads leading up to it. We didn't count a fall in an inter squad in months, and so we got to that first meet, and we had some struggles on beam, which a lot of teams do, and man, they were like mad. And I was like, this is great. I'm glad you guys are mad, but it's what you do with it that is really going to tell the tale the rest of our season.
Yeah, because in that moment, right, that point of bus ride home, you're kind of upset, you want to figure stuff out. That reflects that, okay, I've built a really solid cultural foundation here, which is, again, growth mindset, making progress going forward. Like that's the root of what you want to see in a really long, sustaining, positive, healthy, culture versus like everybody celebrating the short term kind of like score coming through. But then, so say you take that mindset and you get all high in your own supply, and 2 meets down the road or 3 meets down the road, you get walloped because you never went introspective to figure out how can we improve there. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's not at all what I thought was going to happen.
And to credit this team one step further. So after that meet that we weren't pleased with our performance, they came in the gym and they were like animals, right?
Yeah.
And they just like crushed it. And so fun as a coach to be around that atmosphere. But then later in the season, we beat the number 6 team in the country, came into practice Monday. I swear they worked even harder. I mean, I was like,
no blood in the water, baby.
Yeah, and I remember sitting around, Aaron and JJ and I, practice ended, and we just kind of sat in the gym for a few minutes, and we really just kind of soaked it in, and we said, "Hey, man, we got to remember this moment because as a coach, it doesn't get better than this. To have a team, and I'm not, we're not talking about the meet, we're talking about a practice that we just had that was one of the most enjoyable moments of my college coaching career is the first practice after a big win, and they came in and they worked as if we had lost the meet. And it was, for me, it was just a really rewarding moment. And I encouraged Aaron and JJ to let's take a little snapshot of this moment because this is what we've worked for, is to get our culture to this moment in this place right here. Let's not just brush by it, right? Let's soak this in a little bit.
Sure. And kind of pivoting a little bit, I'd be remiss to not maybe go a little bit technical because obviously, shout out JJ and Aaron with the other events. But I think watching in particular, like bars for you guys has been pretty monstrous in terms of the scale difficulty and your competitiveness with, I think, many other teams out there. And so to help the listeners get a lot of value, I'm curious of like your thoughts around some of the things that maybe have helped your bar performances go up, because I mean, watching a couple of months ago, but also just on TV, it's like, holy hell, like that's real. Like that's some real gymnastics out there.
And I love you pointing it out because so Audrey Barber just graduated last year, and she finished her career as the highest scoring gymnast in Maryland history. And one of the last things she told me before she left is she said, "Brett, don't forget, we're a bar school. First and foremost, we are a bar school." And she's never going to let me forget that. And because we took a lot of pride in our bar lineup, and we competed 6 single bar releases and 6 dismounts. And
monster.
I know that there's easier ways to get to that 10-0 start value. And that is one of the things I love about our sport, right? We don't all have to do the same routines.
Yep.
I think I love the variation, but that's something that we took a lot of pride in, that we did the top level of what everyone's doing. And whoever's listening to this on the Gymternet, you can figure out how many schools last year competed 6 single bar releases and 6 dismounts. And also we were doing them at a really high level.
Yep.
I do think we've got to get to the point in judging that that's rewarded more.
I agree.
But that's kind of a bigger discussion. So the question is how do we get there?
Yeah.
And
you definitely don't recruit 6 amazing bar specialists every year.
Right.
That's a lot of work in the gym.
And that's the thing we're proud of too, is a lot of these kids came in with giant full double tucks and now they're competing double layouts. So I'll give you I'll give you 2 things that we do. We can't be sharing all of our bars.
Yeah. I'd like you to please do a detailed playbook of your workouts. Right. Just a couple.
Right. Okay. So obviously you have to have a great foundation, and this part's not going to be shocking to you, right? You got to have the good basics. You got to have good core shaping. So we attack those in 3 areas, and I'll get to those in a second. And then you also have to build a foundation, right? You start with skills, start with half routines, and then you work your way to whole routines. What we do that maybe is a little different than probably other schools is, right, you have to build your foundation, and then you work to full routines. Then once we get to full routines, I reverse it. Okay, so I was noticing that, college gymnasts, they got a lot on their plate, right? So by the time we get to Friday, they've had, they've been up all night studying. Maryland's a high-ranked academic university. They're studying a lot. They're taking exams. We've had 4 practices at this point. We've had 3 weight room sessions. We've had 3 conditioning sessions. To be honest, in the preseason, when we get to Friday, they're kind of toast.
Yep.
And so what I do is now, so I reverse it. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, are going to be our heavy routine days. And then Friday, that's when we're going to focus on two categories. One, it's going to be drills and shaping, and individual skill work. Okay. And what I found is routines take an enormous amount of energy and focus, but drills don't.
Yeah.
And individual skills don't. So we move those to Friday when we can ask a little bit less of them from a energy output standpoint, but maybe a little bit more of them from a detail work standpoint. So Fridays consist of two things, like I said, drills and shaping. And the drills and shaping will come in three categories: above bar, below the bar, and then body shaping. So above bar to me is handstand, shoulder position, and strength reinforcement. So bounce the handstands on the bounce bar, or above the bar, above your head, light 5-pound stabilization. So we're working on handstand positioning and strengthening. Below the bar is tap, shape, and timing reinforcement. A lot of things you see coming into college is gymnasts that tap at the wrong time or don't tap at all, which makes you can do a double tuck out of that, but
you'll scoop and pray dismount.
Yeah, right. But E level, the full in, the double layout, double Arabian, those skills are out of reach if your tap isn't correct and at the right time. So all of our drills below bar will reinforce tap, shape, and timing. And then the third section is shaping. So we're focusing on the arch position and the hollow position, and making sure that it's done in the upper body, not the lower body, not in the hips. And then for me, that's important because almost everything in bars and almost everything in gymnastics is those two shapes, hollow and arch, and how efficient you are going from one to the other, right? How efficient you are going from arch to hollow and hollow to arch. I mean, that's what a tap swing is. That's what a double layout is. That's what almost every skill in gymnastics is, with a few exceptions. So that's part one on Fridays. We're doing drills. And then part two is, like we said, individual skill work. I'll say, pull up the video from this week. Pick a routine and show it to me. And together, let's identify areas of deduction. Okay. Little short on a shoot over. Okay. Today, let's do 8 shoot overs. Or I had a tiny split in the feet on that blind change into the Jaeger. Well, let's do a ton of blind changes, right? We're not doing massive routine work on Fridays. We're really dialing in on that one or two areas where, this is where the judge is going to get us. So let's lock in and eliminate that as a deduction.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing some of that, because that is definitely helpful for everyone to hear. And I appreciate a couple of things here. One is that I think the misconception in gymnastics is that to reach the higher level, crazier double doubles, the half and half outs, the double layouts, you have to get crazier with your assignments, right? You have to I'm not going to go anywhere into who, but I've been to some programs. I'm like, yo, what are you doing when they're exhausted? You're going to ask this person to do a half and half out after the 3rd or 7th or 8th rep. We're just asking for something to go terribly wrong, versus what you're saying, which I think is common in a lot of really high level programs, is actually to master the really high level stuff. It's going back and being flawless with your fundamentals and flawless with your basics. It's not about the double layout. It's about the tap before the double layout. And I think that's a life lesson maybe, which is the crazier you think you have to get with complexity, it's actually mastering the fundamentals and basics and giving you the raw material to then go make a really nice wood. No, I'm just kidding. To get yourself to the point where you have to then put that into practice, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And my biggest pet peeve when I was a gymnast, and then early as a coach, when coaches would tell me, if your dismount's not correct, get your toes up. Get your toes up. I've heard you tell me
just set
that.
more. I just want you to set more on floor.
Yeah. I've heard you tell me that 100 times, and I think I'm trying. I think I'm doing it. There is a reason earlier on in the gymnast tap that is not allowing them to get their feet up. They're opening too early, or they're not scooping at all, right? There's a reason earlier on in the skill that is not allowing them to get their feet up. And as a coach, you need to identify what that is and address that problem. And that usually fixes everything after that. But just telling a kid, you get your toes up more, man, if I heard that one more time as a kid, it was I'm trying to get my toes up, but there's something else here,
Yeah. And I think as a gymnast, right, we both know how frustrating that is when a coach has one phrase or one solution, right? When all you see is a hammer, all you use is a nail kind of thing, or the other way around. Yeah. But instead of being critical and, like you said, pulling up a video and being interesting, let's look at this, let's look at that, let's kind of reverse engineer this and figure out what might be the issue, versus just literally just running straight forward and hoping it goes. The craziest thing to me ever is when people add really hard, really complex like dismounts or ending passes way before they're ever like fundamentally or technically or strength or cardio ready. And it's like, of course you're going to land short and blow your ankles out. Like, what do you mean? We're not even close to being ready.
Right. And again, we talked about this as early on in my career, to compete against the big guys, they have the depth that we just didn't have in the past. Like, yeah, we would always have 3, 4, maybe 5 gymnasts that were at that top level. But we certainly didn't have extra, right? Like, we could not afford injuries. And it's
Right.
still to this day, like, I feel like if I enter the season with all of our options available, for lineups, then we're going to be really strong. Like, we're not a program that can say like, we can sustain 3, 4, 5 injuries
Yeah.
and be really, really competitive. So yeah, I mean, you got to be in tune to what your team is doing. And here's the thing: if they're exhausted on Friday and they've been up studying and their eyes look like they're drooping, don't do routines. Do
Mhm.
something else. Find a way to be productive. Find a way to get 1% better, and change what you're doing. And this goes back to like what you said. Like, you got to be open to different ways of doing it. Yes, when I started, in my mind, it was like drills and skills Monday, and then half on Tuesday, and whole. Like, it made sense on paper, but in practice, it just didn't work like that. So
Yeah.
be open, try something different. I thought maybe they might have thought I was crazy at first. Like, hey, on Fridays, we're not going to do routines. We're going to do drills. We're going to do individual skill work. But it's worked out so well for us that, we're going to keep this until the next great thing comes along.
And that's such a crucial point, man, what you said, which is you can have a plan and a structure and have a time when like, hey, listen, I know you're a little tired right now, but like we got to push through this a little bit because it's an important thing. There's a very big difference between that and then what you just said, which is like that emotional intelligence and the ability to be flexible with your plan and with your program. Because yeah, good luck having 15 athletes coming in all ready to go at 100%. Or on the other side, all 15 athletes are all tired, all a little sore, so you're going to back off. Like, it's like a 3D chessboard. You're constantly moving. And I think, again, old school way, and that a lot of people, what I grew up with, which is like, yeah, good luck, get it done. Like, we have an assignment, you have 10 beam routines, we got to go. Right. Versus like now, the most successful elites, college programs, whatever I've talked to is like the athletes say, well, the best thing that ever happened was my coach actually had some like communication skills and was willing to back off on a Tuesday when I had a huge bio test on a Wednesday, but Friday I was clear. I could do everything fine. I'll do all my assignments on Thursday instead of Tuesday. Like, it's a small tweak for a couple athletes, but that's essentially saying, I believe in your word and I trust that you're saying this is going to get done eventually, but let's just pivot a little bit here. Like, that's crucial, I think, as a good coach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Once again, you're right on. It's the trust and it's the communication, right? So you said, so a lot of these kids come from programs where like you really didn't speak up and
Yeah.
you kind of do what you told. And the only way they actually get in trouble with me is if they don't. Like, I get upset with a student athlete if you had a tough night or you were up studying or whatever, and you don't tell me and you don't give me the opportunity to put you in a safe situation. Like, hey, we'll move all your dismounts to Resi Pit today.
Yeah.
Or, allow me to tell my staff like, hey, this one was up studying, so I want you to move all our passes to Resi, or
Yeah.
let's no dismounts on beam today. Like, that's the only time I get mad is when
Sure.
they don't communicate, because we want to put them in the best position to be successful. But we can't do that if we don't have all the information. So,
Yeah.
but again, goes back to culture. You have to create an environment where they feel comfortable saying, "Hey, coach, I I had to study all last night, and they know that I'm not going to be mad at them, right? Like, we have a sign in our locker room that says, it says priorities. It says school, gym, everything else, right? And that's how it has to be. So they know that they can come to us and say, I've been crushing it with the school stuff, and I'm half asleep right now. And we'll say,
Yeah.
perfect. Here's
Yeah.
here's a conditioning circuit. Let's do some some basics, some cast handstands. Let's do what we can to be productive and safe. But let's get you out of here in one piece, and get some sleep, and then we'll attack it tomorrow.
Yeah, back to leading by example too, which is like when you set an environment up where the first time, say, a new freshman comes in and they say, they're doing a lot of routines and their back's kind of sore. If they go to you as a coach and they say like, hey, listen, like my back's kind of sore. I had this thing in club, but it's kind of bugging me now. And you're like, yeah, good luck. Get up there. Like, we have a job to do. Like, you instantly break all the trust, right? I love the phrase that trust takes years to build and seconds to break,
Yeah.
because you could in that moment, you might not register that as like being mean, but in your mind, you essentially said, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Good luck. Get it done. Like, but instead, when someone comes to you and says like, hey, my back's kind of sore, like, oh, okay, like, well, what's going on there? Like, is it from this? Like, you actually have a conversation, instantly builds a massive bank of trust that is crucial for all your decisions going on. That person's going to feel comfortable talking to you about, I slept 4 hours last night and I'm gassed, but I'll do it on Thursday. And that's how you build this positive snowball downhill. You know what I mean?
And like you said, the communication, that's great. And that's what builds trust, and that's what builds your culture. And then I try to take it even one step further. Involve the student athlete in the plan. Okay.
Right.
So if they come to you and say, like you said, I was up studying, I'm gassed. I said, well, what do you feel like you could safely do? Like, let's come up with
Mm,
this plan together. And that goes back to the employees being invested in the program, feeling they have some ownership.
yeah.
Then they're willing to say, I feel like I can do this, or I'll do some extra drill work today. I feel like I feel safe to do that. And you say,
Yeah.
sure, but involving them in the plan and having them feel like they have some ownership on it, it on the back end, when they do feel good, man,
Yeah.
they'll go above and beyond. They'll push themselves. They'll go try to get that 1% better when they are feeling good. And so, like, it takes longer to develop, but then you really have a really fine, well working culture.
Yeah. We'll take this full circle back to woodworking, which is if it's harder and takes longer, it's probably the best way to go, right?
100%. All the shortcuts in woodworking usually lead to either a bad product or missing fingers. So no shortcuts, right? That you get
Yeah.
bad work or you get injuries. So
And we can extrapolate that to not great gymnastics or a broken ankle or like a sore
100%,
foot. There we go.
100%.
So yeah, I don't want to take too much of your time because we are both quite busy, but I'm just curious about, what you're most excited for the season coming up. We talked about a couple things, but what's looking down the barrel of, this is coming out in December, maybe November, something in there.
Yeah, so man, this team, and it started kind of last year with this team culture, and we've touched on it already. But their work ethic and their mentality is, I mean, it's something like I've never seen before. And I've coached a lot of years, and I've had incredible student athletes, and I work with incredible staff. But this group has a like a relentless mindset. I mean, every day in the gym, every single turn matters to them. And I say to them, we're not in here killing time. We're not in here like looking at the clock. They are like, every turn they take, they're trying to hit a home run. And I love
Mm,
that about this group. It's like, it was the first week of practice and they're like trying to stick every single dismount off beam. They're trying to hit and I love that mentality. So I'm excited to see this group. We had a great senior leave us in Audrey Barber and Sonia Glauber and Alexana Andrews. We brought Alexis Rubio back for a fifth year, so I'm excited to see her. But really, we're replacing about one routine on each event. So our depth is phenomenal. We got a
mm.
lot of difficulty on every event. We're trending up again on bars. So I'm excited to have fans see this group, but please, if you're listening to this, get to know this team. Like,
Yeah.
follow us on Instagram and get to know them, because they're a lot of fun. I mean, their personalities, and go check us out, because they're a really great group. But once you see their work ethic, like, man, you'll be hooked on the gym terps.
Yeah, man, it's great. So, yeah, obviously, I have to be a neutral observer of all college gymnastics, just being like, I hope everyone does well and doesn't get hurt. But clearly, I wish you guys the best in the whole season.
You're looking for a four-way tie at nationals, like.
Yeah, a four-way tie where nobody gets hurt and everyone wins, right? Like the ultimate.
To be honest, I think that's what we all want. So,
But
yeah.
then also too, unfortunately, the competitive side of me is like, nah, man, I want the best. I want the people who hustle to win. So it's a tough line that I straddle sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love team culture, and I love all the bonding and stuff we do. I still want to win at the end of the day. I love being in the Big Ten conference. I love all the coaches and respect them greatly. I want to beat every single one of them, and I'm fortunate to have a team that wants to do the same, maybe even more than I do. So that's what makes it fun. But watch us this year, because I think this group is special. But don't take my word for it. Turn on Big Ten Network and BTN Plus, and come check us out in person if you live locally, because gymnastics is exploding right now, and there isn't a better time to be a gymnastics fan. So come
Yeah.
check
Well,
it out.
The good news is for you is that two things can be true at the same time. You can be nice and kind to everyone in your conference and still want to just crush everyone.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, like I said, these coaches are great.
I'm
We
sure
go
they
to our
think the same.
we go to our Big Ten meetings, and it's surprising. We all actually all get along really well, and we're all in it together to improve the sport of gymnastics and
Yeah.
for our student athletes and for our fans. And but at the end of the day, I mean, we want to beat each other by 3 points. So that's we're all competitive. We were all former athletes. We were all college gymnasts, every one of us. So yeah, that's what makes it fun.
You got it, man. Well, I'll let you go. And I do appreciate the hour here to chat. I think a lot of people will pull out super valuable stuff here. So enjoy your weekend and thanks for being here.
And thank you for having me.